New Orleans is an incredibly lively, wonderful, creative city.
The Crescent City is known for many things. Good government has never been one of them. For decades, competing factions in the city's government resulted in conditions that would have been unthinkable elsewhere in the country. It took one of nature's most horrifying catastrophes to change the way the city did business.
We actually invited the Vera Institute through city council funds to come and do a panoramic assessment of our criminal justice system to help to reimagine the criminal justice system in New Orleans.
This is not a kind of engagement where you can just fly in and drop in once in a while. We knew we had to go in a pretty significant way.
In the spring of 2007, Vera issued a study laying out the plans for change. Then, far from the distractions and daily political pressures of New Orleans, Vera brought together the leaders of the city's longtime factions in a retreat.
We gathered all criminal justice key stakeholders together in a retreat format to actually come together behind a common denominator, and that was the Vera report.
From the very outset, the whole notion of having a retreat where the heads of agencies would come together and sit together and talk and argue and come to some consensus was a foundation for this idea that we're not going to do this on the nightly news. We're going to do this in the quiet contemplation of serious meetings.
Then there's an interesting thing. This comes from the Vera website, and one thing that a lot of people want to say is crooked bondsmen and judges and stuff like that. And I could tell you that if I and a group of bondsmen in the city of New Orleans offered to take our entire criminal justice committee on a vacation and spent a whole bunch of money on them and came out with an agreement that they would let me operate the jail's release system, I would probably be meeting the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney and spending some time in a jail.
Hold on. Back up here a second. What did you just say about taking somebody on a vacation?
I'm going to read to you, this is a paragraph from Vera's website. In 2007, at the request of the New Orleans City Council, Vera proposed several initiatives to make the criminal justice system more fair. The Institute then helped facilitate a groundbreaking retreat of the city's criminal justice leaders, an event that led to the formation of the Criminal Justice Leadership Alliance and a statement of commitment to specific reform.
In 2012, the City of New Orleans began funding the Vera Institute of Justice. The Pretrial Services Program's stated goal is to reduce the number of people being detained for minor and non-violent charges.
Weigh in at 260-0995, 877-5850-995. All right, with all the shootings we've had going on and what happened on Mother's Day, and we're finding out more about this Vera Institute. We've been talking about them. They're pretrial services people. They're in charge of it here in New Orleans and in other cities across the country. And we're finding that these people, well, they might be putting us all in danger. It might make us all less safe because of what they do. They're basically lobbyists that lobby judges to let these guys out or enroll in one of their services. They advocate for people not to go to jail, and that can be bad.
Erica Matthews, a former pretrial services investigator in Virginia, had a front row seat to pretrial services.
I worked for Pretrial Services. I started in July of 2005, and I left in February of 2007. I was a pretrial investigator. I left because there became political pressure to alleviate the overcrowding of the jail, and their solution was to go to pretrial and ask pretrial to start releasing more people that we would not have normally released. Rape, robbery, charges such as that.
Last question for you. I understand when Philadelphia years ago went to a pretrial service method like they're doing in New Orleans. What happened to crime and criminals in Philly?
Well, it's interesting because back in 1969, the bail industry wasn't regulated hardly anywhere in the country, and Philly had a problem. They had $1 million owed. They had 1969 4,324 wanted fugitives. The community thought that was too many people, and the bondsmen weren't doing their job, so they went to this pretrial stuff. As of 2009, they now have 47,000 wanted fugitives and over $1 billion owed in unpaid forfeitures, and they've come back after 43 years to commercial bail.
The Vera Institute has used many different examples of their success, and one of them has been Philly. And this is the Philadelphia Inquirer, 3-day expose on everything pretrial release of a nonprofit type has done to the city. Philly has 51 warrant officers to work over 900 cases apiece. They have over $1 billion in uncollected forfeitures. 210,000 defendants owe bail money to the city of Philly. Not to mention, they paid for all this with taxpayer dollars.
The shocking 2013 Mother's Day shooting in New Orleans put the deficiencies of Vera's pretrial services model on full display.
Fox 8 has obtained a copy of a pretrial services report on Akeem Scott. That report is a tool for judges as they consider setting the bond for suspects, and it gave Akeem Scott a low-risk rating. The pretrial program is run by the Vera Institute.
There's nothing that Vera can tell the court that is going to influence the court's decision that wasn't already available to the court.
Good morning, Denny. Good morning, Matt. My question is this. It's my understanding that Vera was instrumental in the reduction of the jail size campaign for New Orleans, from the 3,000 plus to the what's going to be 1,400 beds. Was that part of? Is that because of? Because it sure seems like it's because they have a vested interest in getting more people out on these free Vera bonds or Vera free bonds or whatever it is with these pretrial services programs, so that they can increase their money, because I know they're funded by the federal government and state government through grants and local government.
Matt, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, look, one of the mechanisms that Vera uses, Judge Hanson is the chief magistrate in Orleans Court. He said regardless of the Vera recommendation, he still, as a judge, gets to make the final decision. And that only stays true as long as there's room for deterrence. If the judge has the ability to put a person in jail, once your jail reaches a capacity that you can no longer use it as a deterrent, then you pretty much remove Judge Hanson's authority in the case, or any other judge.
I am a fireman. I am an EMR. I am a former Navy veteran. I am a father of 8, and I am a bail bondsman. Where's the risk assessments, Mr. Wool? You have 5,500 people assessed, and you pay them for assessments, but you don't look at the assessments. Look at the assessments. Akeem Scott was a 3, guys. He's a 6 now. Telly Hankton's an 8. Ted Bundy's a 3. These people say they can protect us. You can pre-evaluate somebody to determine if they're a risk. I can't do that. I've been doing this for 21 years. I've been looking at people that are in jail and getting them out. And the one thing I never tell you is I can determine if they'll commit another crime. I promise to return them. Does he? How do they get them back to court? Do they get them back to court? What is their responsibility, Madam Guidry, other than to get a paycheck? What do they do for the city that's worth $500,000+ that the court doesn't do already? There's not one thing in the risk assessment that's private. I have one. I have Akeem Scott's, and I've released it to the press. And the public is going to get a full dose of it over the course of the next 2 weeks. We're going to bring the pressure to you to answer. Where are the risk assessments? You're paying them for money saved. Every missed court date costs money. Who missed court? You won't tell us who missed court. You won't tell us who they've looked at. You won't tell us one person that they've assessed. So how can you determine if they're saving us money? If you say releasing people, fewer people in jail means less crime, close the jail. Then we have no crime. This is an insane way of doing business. I applaud Judge Hanson and the rest of the magistrates for ignoring a 3 on Akeem Scott. I applaud them for ignoring a 6. He shot 19 people, and he's a 6. He's not a 24. You know, if you live in your own house for 6 months, you can't be a 24, ever, ever. It is impossible to guess whether a person will commit a future crime. This is insanity. Thank you.
Pretrial doesn't work. Pretrial can't work. Listen, we're not a social justice program. Our job is to make sure that a person appears in court. Vera's job is just to make a person appear a victim and be released for free. Denny, the truth is, pretrial release exists in every jail in the country and always will and always has. People that are low-level criminals, people that get caught in the system of justice, they find their way out of jail pretty quick. We, the bail bondsmen, deal with people that won't get released for free because they shouldn't be. Vera isn't asking to release me and you or people like us. They're asking to release Keene Scott and the Judge Marullo carjackers. And this is not a place for some nonprofit that the leadership makes six-figure payrolls. The top three each make more than our mayor, more than our police chief, more than our fire chief, and they're a nonprofit.
It's a joke. That is a joke. Matt Dennis.
At the end of the day, members of the council, it is the judge and no one else who has to make a decision as to whether or not his or her name will be attached to that release. No one else's name will be made a part of a news story. No one else's name will be dragged through the gutter. When it came to the Mother's Day shooting, the judge was relying upon information from a third-party organization. A third-party organization who may not have had any say-so, but for the fact that they've been funded by the city council or other government agencies. I can tell you this, I do not need a third party giving me information that when I was an assistant prosecutor under Mr. Connick, it was my job as the assistant district attorney to inform Judge Hanson and all of the commissioners in evening court the information regarding, I guess, risk assessment of an individual and the appropriate amount of a bond. It was the job of the prosecutor, and at the same time, the public defender would also weigh in on it so that the judge would be given as much information as possible.
After a 2-year experiment costing taxpayers over $1 million, key criminal justice stakeholders are rejecting the Vera model because of its serious flaws. High administrative salaries, a faulty risk assessment tool, and the shift of a massive new responsibility to an overburdened police department. These flaws reveal the Vera model to be a grave risk to public safety.